Hey, Escalation Squad. Hope you're doing absolutely amazing today. It's John from Reddit Escalating Stories, and we're back with some more wild Reddit drama that just keeps getting worse. If you love watching these stories escalate out of control, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the bell. Means the world. Let's dive straight into the story. It's a crazy one. Much love. Let's escalate. Now, today's story comes from Tiggy Bears 21, and it says, "Am I overreacting to husbands talking about their wives' bodies after childbirth? My friend told me something that honestly made me feel ill. She said her husband's friends, mind you that they are not even that close, were talking in a group about childbirth, and they started discussing which birthing methods they don't recommend, because apparently some husbands said their wives' vaginas became loose after giving birth. It's not the same as before, and that sex wasn't enjoyable anymore. I wasn't even there, but hearing about it made me feel disgusted and uncomfortable. I just keep thinking, how can a husband talk about this, not only to the wife, but also talk about his wife's body like that to other people in front of his wife? I feel really hurt on behalf of these wives, and another part of me wonders if I'm taking it too personally, even though it wasn't about me. It just feels so disrespectful and degrading. Am I overreacting by being upset about this? Or this is actually something normal to talk about between married couples circle? Edit. They said they don't recommend C-section because, in their logic, the vagina will go back to normal after natural birth, but not after a C-section. Second edit. Their logic. When a woman is pregnant, her vagina loosens for birth. If she gives birth naturally, it'll go back to normal. But if she has a C-section, it doesn't know the baby's out, so it stays loose. Commenter. Not overreacting. It makes me so sick that as a woman we have always been viewed, and in many ways still are, as pleasure object for men. Example from my life was after years of painful and uncomfortable sex in my 20s. I finally got up the courage to ask my male guion what to do about my insanely tight pelvic floor and vagina. And instead of listening to my concerns and recommending pelvic floor therapy, he simply said, "Hey, that's a good problem to have. I'm sure your husband is happy." I went to my car after feeling disgusting and cried. Commenter. I knew someone with bad, painful ovarian cysts whose female GYN refused to prescribe her birth control, which is the recommended treatment for that, because it would halt their growth and reduce their risk of becoming cancerous or her needing surgery, because the GYN was Christian and felt it would encourage her to have premarital sex. We were literally in our 20s at the time. I told her that doctor was criminally negligent and had her go to get actual treatment at Planned Parenthood. All sorts of doctors minimize women's pain. It is rampant across medicine. Commenter. None of them know how vaginas work and are just being stupid and disrespectful. I personally wouldn't sit there and listen to my husband talk about my vagina like this, or at all, in public. If he has things he needs to share about it with me, he can do so with me at home, in private. Edited to add, not overreacting. Also, this would be something good to discuss with your husband, to let him know how you'd feel. Commenter. Not overreacting. That's gross and embarrassing. And I don't know if I've ever known a woman thinking, "Oh, I better get a dangerous invasive surgery where they literally remove my guts, so my pussy stays nice and tight." If that matters to a guy, then they can stay childless. And for the record, I've asked my husband to tell me if it changed. He said no. Also, I'm convinced that the guys that need death grip dry sex are too used to jacking off, not overreacting. Men should never feel as though they have a say on this topic. It's the woman's body. She's the only one who is allowed an opinion, aside from her doctor. Acting like your dick should be the primary consideration instead of the health of your wife and child is just so utterly repulsive. Also, this isn't discussed enough, but men's dicks often get smaller as they age, due to lowering testosterone levels, circulatory and vascular issues impacting blood flow, plus weight gain reducing length from the base. I wish I'd been there to add that to the conversation. Commenter: men are so freaking stupid sometimes. The vagina is incredibly elastic. The idea it stretches out during birth is a myth. It goes right back to the way it was, as long as there wasn't any major trauma or damage on the way out. A C-section has so many potential complications with it and can cause so many other difficulties for the mother. Having one just because you're afraid that you're going to be loose is ridiculously foolish. I honestly feel like for the majority of these men, it's psychological after seeing a baby come out of there. OP replies, "You know what? They actually don't recommend C-section. They said by giving birth normally, the vagina will go back the way it was, but not with C-section. My friend was so terrified by C-section because of this." Commenter: wait, he thinks a C-section makes the vaginal canal looser? OP replies, "They said when a woman is pregnant, her vagina loosens for birth. If she gives birth naturally, it'll go back to normal. But if she has a C-section, it doesn't know the baby's out, so it stays loose." Commenter: what the fuck was even their logic behind that? The loose vagina after birth is stupid enough, but how TF do they think a cesarean impacts the vagina at all? I don't know if I even want to know. What in tarnation? Commenter: you're not overreacting. Imagine if the wives knew their husbands were talking about their most intimate body parts to their buddies. Or if the wives were talking about their husbands' body parts to their friends. Definitely not okay. Gross and super disrespectful to their wives, OP replies. The wives were there. They were listening to that discussion. Commenter: not overreacting. And this is not surprising. Men are disgusting when it comes to women's bodies, especially postpartum bodies. My ex-brother-in-law, a doctor, once told his wife at the time, also a doctor, that pregnant women's bellies gross him out. He said it seems like it's just a giant blister that needs to be popped or some dumb shit like that. He subsequently cheated on his then-wife when she was freshly postpartum with their second kid. Imagine that. Ruined his entire life. But that's another story for another time. LOL. Tell DR, men are assholes. Commenter: they sound like shitty guys. None of my guy friends would talk like that about their wives, especially in a group chat. Carrying a pregnancy to term is the most dangerous thing a woman can do. The only way a man should respond to your vagina after you've risked your life to have his child is with reverence and fucking gratitude. That aside, your hips continue to widen until your mid-30s, and toward the end of a pregnancy, your joints also become more relaxed to make it easier to give birth. Your vagina is a muscle, and it is generally as tight as its muscle tone. The opening of your vagina naturally gets wider as you age because your hips are literally widening. After healing from a vaginal birth, it will often be tighter than before from scar tissue, especially if you had stitches due to an episiotomy or other tearing. Just do Kegels. Additionally, you should never get a C-section unless it is medically necessary. Apart from that, it is physically cutting open your abdominal muscles and uterine wall and creating risk to your future ability to have a vaginal birth, or even conceive another child. It's linked to poorer health outcomes for your baby. Your baby spends its time growing and developing in a more or less sterile environment, the amniotic sac. But our immune systems are heavily reliant on having a healthy balance of microflora on our bodies and in our intestinal tract. Your baby is biologically designed to have its microflora seeded by your vaginal canal as it exits your body. The pressure of your vagina pushes the same beneficial bacteria, keeping your body healthy, into its eyes, nose, mouth, and the folds of its skin. It sort of seeds your baby's immune system so it can better navigate the assaults of the outside world. Without your vaginal bacteria, your baby's microbiome is seeded with whatever it comes into contact with, making it easier for opportunistic bacteria to take root. This means children born of C-sections are more likely to get sick or have allergies. Sure, breastfeeding helps with immunity to an extent, but not enough to balance out what is lost by not having a vaginal birth. However, there has been some research where they shoved a bunch of gauze inside the vaginas of women who were having C-sections for a number of hours, and swiped the baby's eyes, nose, mouth, butt, etc. with the gauze as soon as they were cut out of the womb, and they found the health outcomes for those children were similar to those delivered via vaginal birth. Re-E, the commentary about being looser after the C-section, it's possible those women had difficulty recovering the same amount of muscle tone after their abdomens were cut open. Their muscle never healed properly. They likely didn't do the kind of post-delivery physical therapy as a woman who gave vaginal birth might do, and they wouldn't have required any episiotomy stitches. One of my sisters had to have C-sections for all her kids, and I feel like she has mentioned issues with restoring her abdominal muscle tone. Commenter: So, men are just supposed to keep everything bottled up and never discuss anything that might upset you? I've heard women discuss men's bodies, and no one seems to bat an eye. Unless they were using nasty terms, I don't actually see a problem with them discussing how they feel. OP replies, I'm not saying men should bottle up their thoughts, but even if a woman's body feels different after birth, do you think she wanted that? Or that she could control it? Yes, of course guys can talk privately. But is it really okay to tell other couples, recommend it to friends, and say their wife's vagina got loose? Pregnancy isn't easy. The wife don't get pregnant without her husband. After carrying a baby for 9 months, how can her husband say something like that? Commenter: The fact they think they can even recommend not having a C-section, ignoring that it doesn't change your tightness, is bonkers, because that's a needed surgery. OP replies, I know. I hate this, because my friend is actually scared of having a C-section because of their ridiculous logic. She was so afraid both before and during her pregnancy, carrying the baby full term for 10 months, until the doctor had to intervene. All right, escalation squad, be honest. At what exact moment did you feel your stomach turn, hearing these husbands rank their wives' postpartum bodies like it's a car review? Quote the line that made you sick. And women, have you ever overheard men talking about women's bodies after birth like this? Or guys, would you ever speak about your wife this way? Drop it below. I read every single one. If this one made your blood boil, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss when the next disgusting story escalates even further. We drop new Reddit drama every single day. Love you all. See you in the next one. Much love.